Hi everyone, my name is Tony Mastroperi and I will be sharing my findings on the merger and acquisition model. I will be doing so by comparing the proposed mergers between Halliburton and Baker Hughes, as well as between Schlumberger and Cameron. These companies are all in the oil field services industry, and as an employee of an oil and gas operator, it has been interesting to learn more about some of the key suppliers that I work with. In the past, mergers and acquisitions were focused on simple criteria to integrate a company, such as the size and quality of an acquired firm. The model was generally make them like us, and there was no real strategic approach to merging with or acquiring a particular company. Mergers and acquisitions became more strategic with the publication of the Mergers and Acquisition Model in 1990. It was created by Philippe Haspelat, a professor and honorary dean at Vellerick Business School, as well as David Jemison, a professor emeritus at the University of Texas. They designed four major phases to the process: the idea, the acquisition justification, the acquisition integration, and the results. These phases further outlined the need for a matrix to score strategic interdependence and organizational autonomy between the two companies that would be coming together. Based on the scores of strategic interdependence and organizational autonomy, there are four possibilities for a preferred approach. Preservation means that management should focus on keeping the benefits of the acquisition intact. Symbiosis means that management must make sure the integration is a gradual process and that the boundary between preservation and permeability is flexible. Holding means that there's no real intention of integration and that value is only created through financial transfers, risk sharing, or general management capability. Absorption means that the management must ensure that its vision for the acquisition is completely carried out. The first case study I'll discuss is the proposed merger between Halliburton and Baker Hughes. Halliburton was the second largest oilfield services company with $24 billion in revenue during the first 9 months of 2014. Baker Hughes was the third largest oilfield services company with $18 billion in revenue for the same time period. The merger was announced on November 17, 2014, and had an equity value of $34.6 billion. This value represented a 40% premium to Baker Hughes shareholders. It was expected that this merger would yield nearly $2 billion of operating synergies annually, and that Baker Hughes would provide its expertise in the artificial lift and production chemicals businesses. The second case study I'll use to address this model is the proposed merger between Schlumberger and Cameron. Schlumberger was the largest oilfield services company with $19 billion in revenue during the first 6 months of 2015. Cameron was the leading provider of flow equipment, products, and systems with $4.5 billion in revenue during the same time period. The merger was announced on August 26, 2015, and had an equity value of $14.8 billion, representing a 37% premium to Cameron shareholders. It was expected that this merger would yield nearly $300 million of operating synergies in the first year and $600 million in the second. The merger would lead to a combination of two complementary technology portfolios to service the oil and gas industry. Let's take a look at applying Haspelat and Jemison's model for the proposed mergers. For Halliburton and Baker Hughes, the integration model was preservation. Halliburton was planning on selling off redundant assets, and Baker Hughes would be mainly focused on its strengths in artificial lift and production chemicals. It was generally believed that the merger would hamper competition since both companies provided many similar products and services. The merger faced significant hurdles, the last of these being a Department of Justice lawsuit to block the merger in April 2016. The merger officially fell through on May 1st. Baker Hughes is now being merged with GE's oil and gas division. This merger, announced in October 2016, has been approved by the EU and the US. The expected close date is sometime in mid-2017, with $1.6 billion of synergies to be realized by 2020. This merger would be considered symbiosis. For the Schlumberger and Cameron merger, the integration model was also symbiosis. This integration has been gradual, and Cameron remains a distinct business group while incorporating some of Schlumberger's technologies. The two companies were already working together in a joint venture called OneSubsea, and the merger faced few hurdles since they had different core competencies. The goal of the merger was to create a port-to-pipeline services company to combine Schlumberger's reservoir and well technologies with Cameron's flow control technologies. The merger was successfully completed on April 1, 2016. It is important to note that Haspelat and Jemison warned managers that the integration process can sometimes destroy value and capabilities that were the basis of the merger. Additionally, sometimes synergies clearly projected on paper may remain unrealized, and others may emerge, like with Schlumberger and Cameron. However, as with the case of Halliburton and Baker Hughes, the deal doesn't always go through. I found two main limitations to the mergers and acquisition framework. The first is that there's no clear scoring methodology. No true detail is provided behind how a company's integration should be ranked among the 4 integration approaches. I use news sources and financial statements to assist in my ranking. The second is that there's no differentiation between a merger and an acquisition. The Halliburton-Baker Hughes example was clearly a merger, and though I would have described the Schlumberger-Cameron example as an acquisition, all official documentation state that it was a merger. It would be helpful to have more detail in the framework on how to rank the two integration types. In terms of recommendations, it would be interesting to see a more industry-focused application of the framework. In this presentation, both examples were in the oilfield services industry, but it would be interesting to see how different industries like pharmaceuticals or manufacturing would apply the model if it were more scalable. Finally, I would like to see the model have different methods to deal with an integration if it was between two private firms, two public firms, or one private and one public firm, as these variations can have an impact on the integration. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to viewing others' presentations. Here are my references if you'd like further information on mergers and acquisitions or the two case studies that were discussed.